KD.
Hey, what's up, good brother?
Man, I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good, man. I appreciate you getting up on here tonight, man. I know you got a lot of things going on, and just to be able to have you get on here for a few minutes, man, I appreciate your time.
Man, no problem, my friend. And it's not quite nighttime out here,
Yeah,
So
I know you in
a lot,
you in LA on the West Coast.
a lot of quarantine, but a lot of sunshine, my brother.
All right. Well, man, look, I don't want to take up much of your time, and I appreciate you getting on here. And we got viewers still jumping in, but we're gonna start tonight. For those of you who are now coming in, this is Life After Sports podcast, hosted by me, Kevin Johnson. And tonight our theme is talking about mental health awareness. All right. For those of you that don't know, this podcast is all about educating, sharing perspectives, and discussing the business aspects of sports in the sports industry. And we're talking with current professional athletes as well as retired. And so they're able to, or former athletes, and they're able to give us their insight on their transition process. So today we have our special guest, Keyon Dooling. And currently he's a former NBA player, author, as well as a wellness counselor. And I appreciate him taking the time to come on our podcast today and share with us some perspectives in regards to mental health awareness and giving us information about himself and what he's doing in his transition as well. So KD, I appreciate you, man.
Hey, man, no problem, man. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. So just so people could get a little bit familiar with you, go ahead and give us your perspective, not perspective, but give us tell us a little bit about your childhood, man, and where you grew up and where you came from. Just give us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, man. So real quick, man, I grew up in South Florida, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, to be exact, between Broward Sunrise Boulevard and the City Zone, Sis Trump.
All right.
But yeah, man, I grew up in Fort Lauderdale, man, which in the 80s, man, Fort Lauderdale was a very unique place. And I say it was unique because not only did we have a lot of business owners, a lot of sense of community, but also there was like the crack epidemic. And so there's two sides of that. So you saw a lot of, hardships and, traumas.
Yeah.
Right. But you also saw a lot of like riches in the hood. So it was a very fun time to kind of grow up. Started playing basketball at a very early age. I'm the youngest of four kids. My father owned a florist, so he always worked for himself, and he was a sky cap and always worked for himself. I never remember my dad working for someone else. And my mom was an educator. She was more technical. So she was a teacher, where she even taught Mitch Richmond when he was at Board Anderson High School. And then in the 80s, because the crack epidemic hit our community so hard, she became a drug counselor at Bark. And so a little bit of my childhood is, man, I grew up in the city zone.
City. Well, tell us about that passion of basketball. I know you might be laughing at me because I have a referee jersey.
A referee jersey on there, boy.
Hey, in the NBA ball right there. You see me, KD?
Hey, Kev, they don't know you used to train. They don't know about training style, bro.
Hey, they don't know. That go way back when you were training back in them days, man. They don't know. But give us a little bit insight about your passion for basketball and when it started and that love for the game.
Yeah, man. I mean, I fell in love with the game at a very early age. I could remember being in the bathtub and having pictures in the bathtub as an infant, you know what I mean, with a basketball in my hand. So my older brother played college ball at a HBCU, played at Bethune-Cookman College, and taught me a lot. My brother played high school ball. My sister played basketball. My dad was passionate about the game. And so I kind of grew up around that environment where basketball reigned supreme, not just basketball, but athletics. And, I fell in love at a very early age with the game, not watching the game and playing the game, but studying the game, playing the video with the game, trying to mimic the players that I saw. So I've had a long lasting relationship with that brown basketball.
That's what's up. Now, throughout your childhood, who was that mentor that you had in regards to the young adulthood, or not young adult, young childhood as grown up? Who was that mentor to you during that time?
Well, I think it takes a village to raise a child, and so
Absolutely.
a lot of mentors at a lot of different locations. There were certain coaches and people who worked at the Boys and Girls Club that like sold into my life on a daily basis and was really consistent. There were certain teachers and administrators and security guards. There was even certain street dudes, right, who poured into your life,
Yeah.
and taught the best of them, even though they were in the streets. A lot of them showed me the best of them. But I also think it starts in your household. I had a father and I had brothers, who set a good example for me. And then I got very fortunate at a very early age to meet Judge Zebedee Wright, who was, our like AAU coach before AAU was AAU.
Wow.
He was a judge, extremely educated, loved his community, and, really took us under his wing. And so I would say probably at a young age, Judge Zebedee Wright was my biggest mentor.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Well, how I'm doing the giving people, letting them know a little bit more about you. We're going to talk about pre-career, in-career, post-career.
Cool.
So let's talk a little bit about your career and your journey in the NBA. Tell us a little bit about your basketball career. You played 13 years in the NBA, and
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah, man. Just a little bit about basketball, man. I guess I'll talk. You want me to start at the NBA, or you want me to go back before that,
But
or?
you know what? You can talk about a little bit. You can tell me from college to your transition from college to the NBA.
Okay, well, I'll be brief with it. After my sophomore year, I declared for the draft, right? And man, I didn't get invited to the pre-draft camp. I really wasn't on a whole bunch of people's draft board. And so like it was a struggle. Even one of the local papers wrote a negative article about me entering the draft.
Local
Um,
paper.
yes, a local paper. I don't say whether it was the Herald or the
No.
Sentinel, right? And so yeah, I had to really roll my sleeves up and grind. I ended up being the 10th pick in the draft, the year 2000. Um, played what 17s. I played for 7 teams over 13 seasons. In 5 of those seasons, I was a captain. I never was a full-time starter, but I was a captain. I always had these leadership qualities, and I would say my biggest mentor in my NBA career was Eddie Jones, the OG, triple OG Eddie Jones. I saw Jaron Jones kind of,
Yeah, he's on here.
no, Jaron, man, big shout out to him, man. I watched him play a lot when I was coming up, and number 23 from Ely used to get buckets. So if any questions about Jaron Jones and buckets, yeah, he used to get. Yeah, so yeah, man, my career was to be honest with you, I didn't reach any of my goals that I set for myself as an NBA player, with the exception that I played more than 10 years.
Yeah.
I was a player who started out very slow in my career. I was almost on the verge of being out of the league and got with the Miami Heat and kind of reinvented myself and learned work ethic and how to study the game and how to give yourself to the game and how to work hard. And that really shifted my whole perspective around the game and turned me into a pro.
Yeah. Well, your work ethic is by far up here. I mean, I've been around a lot of professional athletes, and even when they're done, their work ethic changes throughout the things that happen in their life. But your work ethic, I have to say, it has been top top to none that I've seen, and you keep pushing, and that's what I love about you, man. Like you always keep working. So
Thank you, brother.
the theme of this no problem. The theme of this tonight is talking about mental health awareness, and especially in our Black community. We don't really think about those things. Things happen to us. We don't seek advice. We don't seek help. Tell us, how important is mental health in the for professional athletes?
Yeah, I think mental health is the thing that kind of glues everything together, right? If your
Yeah,
mind, emotions, and your wellness is right, your work ethic will be on point, your decision making will be on point, your boundaries will be strong. Like all these things come with like having mental clarity and understanding of yourself and healing from your traumas and your experience and processing your journey, right?
yeah,
Um, so for me, I think mental health is, not the most important ingredient in the gumbo, but it's the one that kind of brings the flavor out. It's the thing that allows all the other elements to function at its highest capacity. And for me, I'm so passionate about mental health. I had a battle with my mental health at the end of my career, where I had to walk away from my dream job, the game I love, the thing that paid me, 7 figures a year. I still miss them, right? But, if I would have gone and been exposed to mental health and the mental health resources earlier in life, I probably would have not had to retire. I probably could have navigated, when I had my battle with PTSD.
Gotcha. Now, with that being said, do you think that there's a stigma in regards to mental health or getting help in the league around mental health? Do you think that there's a stigma where players don't reach out or don't say they need help, or people are not watching their behaviors, why behaviors may change? What's your standpoint on that?
Yeah, I think mental health is still misunderstood a lot, but I would say in the last 7 years that we've been exposed, through so many people's journey and story and vulnerability, speaking about mental health, that it's not as taboo as it used to be.
Yeah,
And so if somebody's going through something now, I don't think it's looked at as bad as it was, maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago when I, was playing in the game and I had a battle with my mental health and everybody was like, oh, it's a wrap. So I think that that conversation has shifted, and it's shifted because of us, right?
yeah,
And us being vulnerable, sharing our experience, letting people know that we're not Superman, we're not superheroes, we're just human. We have these skills like everybody else has these talents and these skills, and we try and cultivate and develop them. But we're just human beings, and having a battle with, your past, or, having anxiety about your future doesn't make you crazy. What makes you, vulnerable is if, you deal with what you're grappling with, whatever your experience was. Everybody has a story, everybody has a journey, and how you handle that journey and process that journey will determine like your next phase of life as you reinvent yourself.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially talking about mental health, and this is mental health awareness month.
Yeah.
Um, with the pandemic, that's affecting everybody. It doesn't matter how much money you have. It doesn't matter if you're poor. Everybody's being affected by this pandemic, and it may be in different levels. But with that going on, I think there's people who need it, or we need it at some point. And just thinking about it, I was having a conversation the other day with somebody. I said, with all this that's going on, I had two family members that passed away with the coronavirus, with COVID-19. And with this whole thing, it just makes you want to sit down and really sit back, analyze, and really look back on your life, like what is going on, what is truly important. And I was listening to your was either yesterday or 2 days ago, you were on with Brandon Tobias.
Oh yeah, Tobias Harris.
Tobias Harris, sorry. And you guys had a great conversation, just talking about the things about meditation and the things that he does, just to, with this time that's going on. Like, how do you, and because you have a better relationship with guys that are still in the league, how do you think it is impacting them in regards to this pandemic?
It's impacting them in a tremendous way. I mean, there's a lot of uncertainty. And, like I talked about earlier, man, hey, NBA players and hoopers and ballers, no matter how successful you are in your industry, you're just a human being at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And you feel like everybody else, and you worry like everybody else, and you're just like everyone else. So, excuse me, we were on the call today, man. We had 28 players on the call today. And, guys were being vulnerable, and I won't, tell their stories or anything like that.
Absolutely.
But, man, guys have concerns, they have worries, they have doubts, they have, things that they're enduring during this process. But also, one of the things that I think is masterful about our players, man, is that, man, they process things, and then they're able to adjust, find routines, tap into resources, and like meet different layers of themselves.
Yeah.
And so I think our players, man, are extremely talented, extremely, resilient. And man, they are trying to do their best through this like everybody else with all the uncertainty.
Well, I appreciate you letting us know that. In regards to, and I think you tapped into this a little bit about challenges, and this story may help somebody who's listening. Normally we have a lot of current professional athletes and retired, as well as former, chime in on our podcast. to talk a little bit. You don't have to go in full detail, but you know, how were you able to break through your challenges in
Yeah.
regards to, you know, at the ending of your career?
Yeah, I would say that the most impactful thing that I did to overcome, like, you know, my childhood, my experience, the traumas, everything, was get therapy. You know, for me, that was probably the most cathartic part of my healing, but it wasn't the only part of my healing. Um, yeah, therapy was where it started for me. It was where I was able to unpack a lot of things, revisit a lot of things, process a lot of things. And man, they say that less than 6% of black men get therapy, right? And we come from some pretty traumatic situations and environments. However, you know, there's a lack of resources that we're obviously seeing during this pandemic. The access to healthcare and, you know, certain resources we don't have those access to. So I'm not blaming anyone,
Yeah.
but I'm encouraging everyone to like do your work. If you can get like some talk therapy, just the basics, and you know, process your journey, process your experience, get some tools to handle it. I think you can heal, and that can like disrupt or interrupt some generational curses that might be in our families, some generational traumas that might be in our families, some new information. So man, I would say that like the first three things you do when you want to heal is one, whatever you believe in, you know, that higher power, that higher being, connect with that. For some people, it's a lot of different things. For me, it's Christianity. I would say that get some talk therapy, some real talk therapy is a great thing. It allows you to process your journey. And then the final thing I would say is that you have to get a wellness routine, find out what works for you, how that wellness routine looks for you. I could share my wellness routine, but that might be boring, but you just have to let me know.
No, I mean, well, look, the next question, you're right on target, because the next question was going to ask, you know, do you have a meditation process or a routine that you use every day that helps you? Because I think people need to hear. I mean, we may all have different meditations or routine. My routine, and I said it on this podcast before, is going to a cemetery and walking and running
Mm,
like 3 miles in the morning, every morning. And and I know it may be weird to other people, but for me, it's the most peaceful place for me to run. And as well, um, I've heard from Les Brown, who said
yeah.
the wealthiest place on the planet is the cemetery, and it's because a lot of people don't fulfill their dreams. They don't. They're not risk takers, and they didn't know that, hey, you know, I may not be here tomorrow, and they never got a chance to be able to pursue their purpose. And so for me, when I run there every morning, I'm thinking in my mind, KD, I need to fulfill my purpose every day. I need to live out to the max my purpose on why I'm here in this life.
And hey, man, thank you for sharing that, man. Thank you for sharing that. And you look, if you're not exposed to Les Brown, I would encourage you to right now, after you listen to this podcast, of course, go check out Les Brown. Like, you know, check out You Gotta Be Hungry, or, you know what I mean? One of those, you know, segments that Les kind of blesses us with. He's a Florida boy, a Miami boy as well. He changed my life.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Um, I would say, man, I think it's very important to find your routine. I think, you know, for me, mine starts in a couple places. It starts in my prayer life, right? And I don't meditate. Like, I'm not one of these Zen folks who can meditate for 10, 30 an hour. That's not me.
Yeah.
You know, for me, meditation is a process that is a part of my wellness routine, right? So it's not just meditating. I might meditate for 5 minutes at a time,
Yeah.
but pray for 5 of those minutes. I might have my affirmations for another 2 of those minutes, right? So a 10-minute routine, if you can, like, you know, discipline yourself and do that every day, with your affirmations, with your goals, with your dreams, with that vision you have for yourself. Meditate on it where you get quiet and you allow your, you know, thoughts to clear, and you know what I mean, your energy to kind of shut down. You know, some creativity a lot of times will like kind of break through for you, and you'll have these
Yeah.
glimpses, you know, in your meditation. The breathing part of it, like, right, like the breathing part allows, like, there's scientific data that shows that if you breathe the correct way, like, you can like minimize your anxiety or your
Wow.
depression, or right. And so just like, you know, finding those routines. And then I started in my body. I go and do something physical. I run 2 miles every day. I don't run in a cemetery. I just run around the neighborhood. But to each his own. Another thing I do is I lift weights 4 or 5 times a week. I'm a former athlete, so my cardio and my physical appearance is great, and it also fights some of the insecurities that I might have dealt with by growing up as a skinny kid. Right? You keep this weight on you. I'm a heavyweight. Walk up on me if you want. That's the part of what drives me. Um, And then I think you got to dedicate yourself to your craft and what it is that you're good at, right? And try and monetize those skills. A lot of times we're good at certain things that we can't monetize. And in this economy, in this world, if you can't monetize, your skill set, you know what I mean, you could like be forgotten about. And so I would
Yeah.
just encourage you to look at holistic health, get your prayer life right, get your workout routine right, get your diet right, set boundaries with people, which I think is really important and difficult to do, to set boundaries and to be able to say no and to be able to not look at the phone and feel like you're obligated to answer. I think those are important boundaries. Hey, if my office hours are from 9 to 5, I'm not answering a call at 6. That's my boundary. I'll work and give my all for those 8 hours, but then I'm gonna allow myself to spend time with family,
Yeah.
find out and, read things that I'm interested in. I also take baths, essential oil baths or something that really work for me. I don't know if you guys are familiar with like lavender oil,
Yep.
eucalyptus, peppermint oil, tea tree oil. I like do these combinations of like these spiritual baths that really help me relax. And then CBD, a lot of people don't want to talk about things that they do or use in order to feel better. I don't do prescription drugs or anything like that. That's not my thing. I had to do that when I was coming back from my battle with PTSD, but that didn't work for me, right? And so what I choose to use is CBD. It really helps me with my anxiety, my inflammation. And so I use CBD daily.
That's what's up. Well, I appreciate you giving us that information because it's going to help. It's helping somebody just to know that that there's things that they can be able to do to access help. And so sometimes they don't know. People don't ask questions. And like you said, in regards to black men, we're less than 6% in regards to seeking help in regards to mental health. So we're going to go a little bit into post career and talk about when did you realize the transition from you playing into your life after sports, that transition process, and what that transition was for you.
Yeah, man. I think I'm still transitioning. I think when you make it to the heights of being an athlete, I think it's very difficult to find something that will, exceed that
Yeah,
expectation, right? So I remember the moment specifically. Me, Remy, and TJ. We were in the gym. It was November. I think I was about 32 years old, 33 years old, and it was the first time in November I had been in the gym without being in a team facility. That I could remember in my adult life. And so I remember, Remy had me doing this drill. I went through, I windmilled it, and I said, hey, you know what, man? I'm good. I'm done. Like, I can't do this anymore. I didn't have the understanding or the temperament or the resources to be able to say, okay, this might take 4 months, this might take 8 months. I said, hey, I'm going to start my transition right now.
yeah,
For some people, that's different. So I walked out of the gym and I immediately said, okay, what am I going to do next? Because I can't rely on, ball like nobody's calling me anymore, right? And so I had to start my transition in that moment.
yeah. Okay. And during your retirement, I mean, I feel that you've done a lot. I mean, you're an author. Talk a little bit about your book. What's driving you. Um,
You mean, you mean this book?
Hey, the fact that I look, man, the fact that your son is on there, and it just to see him, I see pictures now of him growing up, and I said, oh man, little KJ.
He's something else, man. He won't pick up the ball. He didn't like the way I retired, so he won't bounce the basketball. He play,
Oh,
but it's all good.
good.
And man, I think at different points in life you have to reinvent yourself, Kev.
Yeah,
You're not the same person who you were, in high school. You're not the same person who you were as a young adult.
absolutely.
Live, we learn, we make mistakes, we have failures. Some relationships we have to mend. right? And humble ourselves and apologize. Some relationships we have to put distance in and say, hey, you're toxic. I can't have you in my life. But I think it all is a part of the journey.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, our motto here for our podcast is when one career ends, a whole new set of opportunities begin. And so sometimes I think people we're so, I say narrow minded, but we're focused on just this particular moment in regards to this job. I'm gonna be here for 30, 40 years. If you start to look, people are not staying in jobs for 40 years anymore. This is not like what it was back in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s. It's different.
Times have changed and we have to evolve with the times. Um, but also, I think there's a lot of historical context that we can, like, grab a hold of. And I still think work ethic, skill sets, you know what I mean, networks, you know what I mean, like really can get you through doors that, you know what I mean, otherwise might not be open.
Yeah.
And so I think it's a great opportunity to reinvent yourself. Like, look, man, we're all quarantining. Like, I had 12 speaking gigs canceled, right?
Wow.
Over the next 3 months. That's a nice percentage of, money that I generate now from myself and my family. However, you can be bitter about it and say, oh, this isn't fair, or you can reinvent yourself and try and meet people where they are on Zooms
Abs-
or online or FaceTime or through these kind of platforms. So, yeah, you have to be
Absolutely.
flexible.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Talk about how you maneuvered through your second career. I mean, I know you didn't talk much about your wellness as a wellness counselor. Talk a little bit about that
Yeah,
and
man.
how
So
you
the
got
work that
into
I'm,
it.
look, I believe that your gift will make room for you, a lot of
Absolutely.
times. In my experience, the job that I'm doing now with the Players Association didn't exist before, right? And so when this thing came about, you know what I mean? Like it was something that I was like, okay, my journey has prepared me for this opportunity. It's made me, it's cultivated me to this moment, right? So,
Yeah.
man, I'm so thankful, you know what I mean, that I have this opportunity to continue to work with players, work on the game, and things like that, because this wasn't my first vision for myself. I thought I would be coaching in my post career. 5-time captain, never was a starter, played 13 seasons, and I didn't get any opportunities to coach. Not one, right? So you have to reinvent yourself and say, okay, what can I do? What can I become? How can I earn? What am I good at? How can I reinvent myself without having to go and knock and just, you know what I mean? Like, beg
Yeah.
for a gig. And I was able to develop myself in the Players Association with great mentorship from like Purvis Short and people like that who like mentored me and showed me the ropes on the corporate side.
Yeah. You talked a little bit about the power of networking, and I know we just talked about it for a little bit, but talk about your experiences and just life in general and how the power of networking has tremendously helped you in your second phase of life. And I say second phase because I'm talking about a different career, but
Yeah,
I think you do that very well.
man, I'll say this. When I got hired with the NBA Players Association, it was because I served with Roger Mason Jr. on the board as players. And as he elevated, because we were so close and we had that network, he was able to advocate for me, right? Your networking impacts your net worth and your opportunities, right? And so it's
Yeah.
not just about connecting, it's about cultivating relationships. And it's one of the most important things that we can do is have solid relationships.
Oh, you're right. You're right. Solid relationships, and sometimes it takes time for it to get to that. Meeting so many people. You know, most times just navigating through those different conversations on how can you be able to bridge the gap and help others, and it be a two-way street, especially in your line of business. So I appreciate you sharing your life experiences to our audience, especially with our theme for mental health today. And I mean, if there's one thing that you can be able to give advice in regards to our audience in regards to mental health, what would it be?
Um, I would say that, like look at your age, however old you are, right? If you never gone to see a therapist or talk to somebody about your experience, you're still holding on to that baggage. So I would encourage you to go see a therapist. I don't care how mild or you know, how awesome your life was, just go see a therapist to unpack some of the unresolved things that you might have. Um, I would say that, you know, it's important to, you know, have a good diet, exercise, have good relationships, whether it's your, you know, significant other or your friends or your families. I think, you know, good, healthy relationships are really important. And if I have a mantra, I would say that the biggest room in your life is the room for improvement. Like the same way we could get better on the basketball court, or the same way we can educate ourselves and learn more and get more fiscally responsible, is the same way we can transition those skills into anything that we want to become. So I would say that the biggest room in your life is the room for improvement.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you dropping that gem. Now, if people wanted to get your book, all right, they wanted to get your book, KD. Where can they
What?
go? Can they
What? This book?
come on, man? You didn't even you know what? You didn't even talk a little bit about the book. You know, I know you got to go. But where if they
Uh,
wanted to get
Man, let me tell you a little secret about the book that worked me. Right, there was a disconnect between my pen and what I thought and what I felt. So what I did with writing my book is that I spoke it. I wrote out this outline, and then I just spoke into Siri. Right, I would just speak into Siri, and then I would correct my grammar. And yeah, man, I, you know, 3 months later, I had a book just like that. So I would just encourage anybody, man. Hey, look, if you got a story to tell, everybody does. If you can organize that and things like that, it could be lucrative for you. Man, I speak all across the country because of my story. And I sell books all across the country because I wrote the story and I told the story, right? And there's a takeaway. And if I wouldn't have embraced what I went through, if I wouldn't have been able to process through therapy and my healing process, I wouldn't have been strong enough to say that, hey, I was sexually abused as a child. I wouldn't be strong enough to say, hey, look, I had to retire from my job because I had a mental health breakdown. You know, because I did my work, I'm strong enough to walk in my power. And I want to encourage everybody else to be able to walk in your power. Your story is your glory.
well, look, Keyon, I'm not going to keep you any longer. I appreciate your time. I mean, just the little tokens of gems that you gave to us today. I'm pretty sure a lot of people have something to take away from this. And I just want to say thank you for coming on our podcast. This is episode 4, and I appreciate your time. Hopefully, everybody got some great nuggets from you. Tell your wife I say hello and your family. And thank you again, my brother.
Uh, Man, all the best, kid.
Huh?
Keep doing what you're doing, man. I'm proud of you, bro. Keep going, champ.
I appreciate it, man. Remy creeped up in there, but I just want to say peace, man. Thanks again.
Hey, man. Roach creeped up in there. Jaron Jones creeped up in there. It's a
Yep.
lot of our homies that creeped up in there, man. If y'all on there, man, hey, man, I love y'all. I respect y'all. I appreciate y'all. I hope y'all being safe during this quarantine. They could never take away the time we got to spend when we was young boys, right? In the gym, when we fell in
Yeah.
love with the game. The game took us a lot of different places. And I'm always grateful and loyal to y'all boys because like we shared a piece of life that nobody could take away from us. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And so
Absolutely.
I hope the love and support and make sure we stay connected at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
My
Well, I appreciate it,
thanks,
man.
kid.
Take care. Have a good night.
All the, all the best, my brother.
Oh,
Thank you.
thank you.